Doing some simple math reveals the basis of our topic this morning. And don't fret, don't worry. I'm not asking you to do math. I'm telling you I've done some simple math, and I'm going to let you know what it is. I know not everyone likes math on a Sunday morning. So there are 7 days in a week, with me so far, 24 hours per day. If you can do that in your head, that's 168 hours a week. 168 to work with. The average person sleeps 8 hours a day. That's 56 a week. So now our total of available hours is 112. Preparing and eating meals takes at least 2 hours. That's 14 hours a week. We're down to 98. Personal hygiene, showers, all that other stuff, about an hour a day. That's 7 a week. We're down to 91. The average work week is 40 hours. Of course, some people are working more or less than that, but we'll go with 40. That brings us down to 51 hours. A healthy life should also be budgeting time for things like exercise and recreation, both physically and mentally. That's healthy. Let's say you're supposed to get 5 hours a week. We're not going to use that number because I know that's not realistic for most people. We'll use 3 hours a week. 3 hours of at least walking, getting outside, some exercise. 48 hours. We've got 48 hours left. So the average working adult has about 48 hours in a week in which to squeeze everything that isn't related to either their job or basic biological functions. And while 48 hours might seem like a lot, actually that's 2 whole days out of 7. That sounds like you've got a lot to work with. Keep in mind that that time is always going to be really chopped and segmented into little pieces. You might have 15 minutes before this and an hour after that, and then 10 minutes later. You don't get them in nice, usable chunks. It makes using your quote-unquote, and I always love this term, your free time, more difficult. Now, there are 2 important and time-consuming aspects of life that we haven't fit in to our time budget yet. 48 hours left to work with, and we haven't mentioned anything about our interactions with other human beings. That is, family and friends, the time that they need. And of course, we haven't mentioned our devotion to and service for God. So as the father of a nearly 3-year-old little girl named Clara, I sometimes feel like I spend all 48 of those hours chasing her around this building or around the house from one thing to the next. Which brings me to the key question in our focus this morning. Can a man or a woman serve God fully and make a difference for the kingdom of God and at the same time be devoted to his or her spouse and children too? Is there enough time? Is there enough passion, enough energy for both things? Let's look at 1 Corinthians 7. We'll start with 25 to 28. It says this, "Now about virgins I have no command from the Lord, but I give a judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. Because of the present crisis, I think that it's good for a man to remain as he is. Are you pledged to a woman? Do not seek to be released. Are you free from such a commitment? Do not look for a wife. But if you do marry, you have not sinned, and if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. But those who marry will face many troubles in this life, and I want to spare you this." Now, I've told you that the question before us is, can you serve God as effectively as a married person and maybe as a parent too, as you can as a single person? That is our focus. And you might be wondering, then why is this text that we're reading talking about virgins? I lost the connection. Bear with me. I think you'll be able to see it here in a minute. In our text, of course, a virgin is a synonym for a single person. I know that many of the people in the world, especially in modern Western society, who are single are not virgins, but Paul's operating with a different culture. People married younger, cultural pressures were stronger. He's speaking to single people in this. So Paul has no specific instruction from Jesus, he's saying, regarding whether or not a disciple of Christ is supposed to seek marriage. Although Jesus did require of his followers that they put their devotion to him first. Remember that Jesus said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, I hope that you can see that Jesus is using hyperbole there to try to emphasize how total, how complete the commitment to discipleship has to be in order to be genuine, effective. Because we know that even single people, so it would still apply to both groups here, even single people that don't get married, that don't have children, they still have family, they still have parents, they still have siblings, and other people that they care about in life. So they're still going to have to put those people behind their devotion to the cross. A single person might have less commitments, less obligations, but you still have them. So what does Paul say next? He says, because of this present crisis, he thinks it's good for people to stay as they are. Now, we don't know what that present crisis was, what exactly it was happening in the church at Corinth, or in the city of Corinth that Paul was worried about. He made reference to it, though, called it a present crisis. Now, we know that there are times of natural disaster, times of turmoil, times of war, when the normal plans that people would make in society, the normal plans regarding marriage and children and all the rest, they get put on hold. Young American men that enlisted in the military in December 1941 did not have a normal married life for their next 4 years. Some of them already were married, some of them already had children, and they had to leave all them behind and be gone for about 4 years. The others had to put that part of their life on hold completely until they got back from the war. The present crisis that they were living through demanded it of them. Well, we are not here currently living in a present crisis in our community. We've got issues, we've got the opioid crisis, we've got jobs that are needed by people, but we're not living in a crisis that would make us consider whether or not now is a time to get married and have children. It is not that difficult right now. So the full force of what Paul is saying here is not necessarily currently applicable, not the whole of it. But as you see, he's also going to be talking about the turmoil that we face in life in general. So if not now, what we will face later. And we all will experience that. We all, I think, can relate to the idea that in this life there will be difficulties. Paul says you can do either one. If you marry, you're not sinning. If a virgin marries, she's not sinning. But those who marry will face many troubles in this life. And I want to spare you this. It's important for us to note in this discussion that Paul is saying it is not a sin to remain single. It's not a sin to get married. Neither one of those states is inherently sinful. So we're not talking here today about right or wrong. This is not about what is right and wrong and moral and immoral. This is about what is effective, what is useful, what is the best thing to do as a servant of God. So those who are single people, and those who are married, and those who are married that have children will, as Paul says, face many troubles in this life. We know this. It's true. We will, if we live long enough, inevitably lose the people that we care about to death. Death takes us all in turn. The longer we live, the more opportunities we will have to lose people. The more attachments, the more loved ones that you have, the greater your potential for sorrow. In addition to death itself are all of the worries and setbacks and fears that that will come your way in life if you have a spouse, if you have children, ones that are connected to them. The more attachments of family and loved ones you have, the greater your potential stress. Because of the present crisis confronting the church at Corinth, Paul is focusing on that potential cost of marriage and family. He's talking about that aspect of it. Now, I can't imagine something similar. I can't imagine trying to live through a foreign invasion or a plague devastating our community, at the same time worrying about the lives of Nicole and Clara. I can't imagine being able to do what I need to do if I had to fight, if I had that going on at the same time. And I'm sure you could say the same thing. If a foreign army was invading Venango County, If the bubonic plague was taking 2/3 of the people here, like it did back in the Middle Ages, how could you function and risk in order to serve people when you've got a family? That is a very difficult question. So on the surface of it, the answer to this question seems to be yes. It is more complicated than that, but it seems to be yes, it is harder to do what you must do as a servant of God when you have family. But as I mentioned last week, it was, in my experience, both harder and easier at the same time and in different ways to deal with my own setbacks and delays in regards to my career as a married man. On my own, it might have been easier for me to deal with financial pressure. It might have been easier for me to deal with the prospect of change and having to adapt radically. But I would have been facing those challenges alone. Solomon wrote in the book of Ecclesiastes, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And there's some wisdom of that in that. We know that life is going to contain challenges. It's gonna. Setbacks, crises, all that kind of stuff. They will happen. It would be difficult to face them alone. And it is difficult to face them while you're worrying about your family. Both of those are true. There are more things then for us to consider than the troubles that we will face in life. We are weighing our ability to serve God as both a single person and our ability to serve God as a married person, as a parent. So let's keep going and see what else Paul has to say here. Verses 29 to 31 says this. What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they did not, those who mourn as if they did not, those who are happy as if they were not, those who buy something as if it were not theirs to keep, those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them. For this world and its present form is passing away. I want to start with the first and last sentence in that paragraph because they're connected. We'll get to the middle sentence in a minute because the middle sentence is going to tell us what we should do about the truth that we're seeing in the first and third sentence. Now we know that everyone's time is in essence short. Even if you live to be 100, you have a limited time in which to accomplish whatever it is you're going to accomplish in life. And since we never know how much time we individually have left, we also need to consider that our expected amount of years that we have remaining, that could be cut short any day. In addition to the mortal nature of life, Christians must also consider that this present age, we typically call this the church age, it has a limited time span as well. When Paul wrote this letter about 2,000 years ago, he didn't know if Jesus was going to return in his lifetime, or 10 lifetimes later, or 100 lifetimes later, or even 1,000. He had no idea how much more time remained. The Gospels repeatedly teach us that only the Father knows when the end times will come, when Christ will return. But we do know, as a church, that our time to share the gospel with the lost is limited. We have thus a sense of urgency because our own lives are limited. Our own time is limited. And the time which the church has been given to fulfill its mission is limited. Given those constraints of time, what ought we to do and what does that have to do with being single or being married? Well, that whole middle section about not acting as if what you have is what you have. So we can see that Paul here is intending that our understanding of the limited nature of the time given to us is not only being applied to marriage and family, but to our emotions, our possessions, basically life in general. All of life we need to look at through that scope as a Christian. We need to recognize that everything we have in this life, everything we experience is temporary. That which is good in your life will come to an end. That which is bad will come to an end. We do not, like many of the Eastern religions, believe in reincarnation. This is our only life that we will live here on earth. Nor do we believe like they do in Japan in the religion of Shinto, and many of the ancient folk religions also believed that our spirits would remain here in this world after we die. That's not true either. We have one life, and it is a blessing from God of a finite amount of time. How much we cannot be sure of. After that time is up, we will leave this world, and we will each stand before God in judgment, and not with our family, not with our possessions. It will just be you, and it will just be me by ourselves. So if everything in this life is temporary, even our bonds of marriage, even our parent-child relationships, what will endure beyond this life? Simply this: our service to the kingdom of God and our investment in other people for the sake of that kingdom. That will endure. Now, of course, that will include what we've done because of our devotion to God for our family. Our family are included in that group of people where our contribution will endure. But it cannot be limited to just family, because the world is our mission field. Everyone is our neighbor. We must see beyond our obligations to our family without neglecting those obligations in order that we might truly serve the kingdom of God. So let's return back to that original question. Can we serve God and family too? This is where Paul's idea is going. Let's read this last passage. It says, I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. I'm saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. Paul starts by saying, I would like you to be free from concern. You know, we all know that those who serve the Lord will not automatically be free from concern. I don't know if you knew this, but it's true. I'm sure you already did. Whether you are an ordained minister or a missionary or a lay volunteer, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are serving God, you will, like everyone else, get sick. You will have car accidents. You will have slip and fall accidents. You'll have trouble with hostile people in life. And you may, in fact, at some point get stuck in a blizzard. Just the same concerns, the same troubles, the same worries as everybody else. God is not exempting his servant from trouble in this life. Now, some lives will have more concerns than others. Some people will have worse health. Some people will have harder economic circumstances. Sometimes that has to do with choices we've made in life and things we've done. Sometimes it has nothing to do with it. Paul goes on to talk about married and unmarried people and who they're concerned for in that long section there. That was a lot of words. It's a big, long group of words to say a very simple thing. Paul is saying simply this: for both men and women, whether they are that single people have less commitments than married people who are obligated to care for their spouse too. I didn't think that was a mystery, right? You already knew that. Those of us who are married, we could probably remember. It might have been a while ago, but you can remember your days, the days that you had between when you became an adult and when you got married. Some people, that might have been a very short period of time if they were married at 18 or whatever. You can remember that time and how you were more, quote-unquote, free regarding your obligations, your time, your money, your energies. You could do what you wanted with them more. So at least in those terms, it is easier to serve the Lord without the added responsibility of a spouse and children. In that mathematical sense, the case is clear. But life is not math. What is less clear is this: were you as mature, as useful as a single person as you are as a married person? Is your time, your money, your energy, they're only useful to the kingdom of God as a single person if you are truly devoting them to the work of God in that state. Thinking back, I graduated from high school in 1993. That gets further and further in the past every year. 1993. Nicole and I were married in 2001. We're doing more math. There's a lot of math in today's message. I'm sorry. That was 8 years, more or less. 8 years as a single adult. About half of that time, of course, I was in college. So let me think back on that. Was I useful to the kingdom of God during those years as a single person? I like to think so. In my case, I know I was only devoting a minute percentage of those 8 years to dating, so I wasn't, wasting a lot of that time dating all the time. My focus on the things of God, I think, was pretty steady in that 8-year span. But what if I hadn't met Nicole? What if that single state had continued another 8 years, twice as long? Would I have been more or less effective in serving God at 30, still by myself? No, I don't know about you and how that would be for you, but I rather doubt it for myself. I remember those days. I remember being single. My heart desired the companionship that only marriage could provide, and I always knew that I wanted to be a father. And so at 30, still being single, I think I would have been less effective for the kingdom of God. Some people are better off in life single. Some people really need to be married. That assessment of where you are and how you feel might change at different stages in your life. What was true of you when you were 18, before you were married, might not be the same when you're 67. If you've been married for 49 years, you've raised children, and now you're a widow. Whether or not you want to get married again, that might change because life has changed. We are all, in a sense, unique. I don't know whether your single state or your married state is helping or hurting your service to the kingdom of God. Matthew Henry wrote this about 200 years ago. He wrote, "That condition of life should be chosen by the Christian in which it is most likely he will have the best helps and the fewest hindrances in the service of God and the affairs of his own salvation." He knew back then that wherever you can be more effective and a better Christian, that is where you should be. Paul says, you know what? I'm saying this for your own good. I'm not trying to restrict you, but that you might live in a right way and undivided devotion to the Lord. So in the end, the question is not, is it easier to serve the Lord as a married or single person? It's not about what's easier or about what's harder. Instead, this is our question. Can I serve the Lord better as a single person or a married person? Now, of course, those of you who are already married, we are not asking to reevaluate that commitment. We're not giving you the opportunity to say, should I no longer be married? That's not the point. For most people in life, I think the answer is, I can serve God better as a married person. And for most people, the answer is also, I can serve God better as a parent. Most of us, but not all. Some will be called by God to serve in singleness. I know I wasn't one of them. My wife and Clara in particular, they may be a distraction at time from my ministry, and they may require a significant amount of time and money and energy. But here's where the important line is. But I am a better man and a better pastor because of my wife and my daughter. Without a doubt, I know that having them at my side makes me better at this. So our goal, our mandate from God as disciples of Jesus Christ is to have undivided devotion to the Lord. So if you're single, take advantage of that extra time, perhaps extra money and energy that you might have to give generously to the work of the kingdom of God. And if you're married, if you have children, work together with your family, that as a whole, you might all be undivided in your devotion to the Lord.